Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be giving you some tips around tap around the clock. And tap around the clock is a chart that has been created for you to be able to use 24 hours a day, no matter what time you wake up, okay, to have a really useful mindfulness tool to associate with negative emotions, physical symptoms, and positive emotions. It will also give you a link as to how these are connected within each meridian. Okay, so I'm just going to give you some very short and sweet information for you to take away, because of all the symptoms and things that are out there at the moment. I think it can be quite confusing about how we're all feeling and about what we should be calling these things. Sorry, just let me. So I'm just going to concentrate initially on our lung meridian, because our lung meridian is something that is very much heightened at the moment with everything that's out there in the media. And our lung meridian is very prominent. It's at its optimum working time between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning. So this is a time where some of you might be waking up because you've been lying on your front, okay, and your lungs need to expand, and that's a natural time for us to turn over, stretch, and need to actually move our bodies around. It's also very natural at that time for us to get up and then go to the loo and relieve ourselves from the bladder. Okay, now not surprisingly, our bladder meridian is the opposite time for that. That's 3 and 5 p.m. that works at its optimum. So in its lung meridian time between 3 and 5 a.m, your bladder meridian is at its weakest. So you can make some connections here already. Okay, so I'm going to give just one symptom of the lung meridian. And the lung meridian has quite a few things that can be physically found there. One of them can be coughs and asthma type symptoms, respiratory issues, okay? Which makes sense because it's your lungs, okay? So coughs, asthma type symptoms, and respiratory issues, okay? I know I said I was just going to give one symptom, but really they're all quite related, aren't they? Okay, now I'm going to give you a negative emotion which also locates itself initially in that meridian. Okay, in fact I'm going to give you two, because I started off with two on the others, didn't I? Confusion and grief. Okay, confusion and grief. So is that making sort of some sense right now? Okay, with everything that's going on there. If we think about what's happening out in our societies at the moment, there is an awful lot of confusion going on. There's an awful lot of grief out there for loss of income, for loss of security, for loss of freedom, for loss of loved ones, okay, for not being able to be with loved ones, and for emotional sort of detachment, okay. Wherever there's an emotional detachment, grief usually kicks in quite heavily, because we're not able to express things to somebody or about something, or it is a loss, isn't it? Grief is loss, and confusion comes because we don't know what to do about that, because the safety net has been taken away and we're suddenly left with something that we have to get our heads round before clarity kicks in. And that's a transition time, and that's quite difficult. So not surprisingly, it naturally causes coughs, okay, respiratory problems, and asthma type issues. So if we can start to deal with the confusion and the grief, then the physical symptoms have a tendency to strip away the layers of that as well, not always, okay? But I'm doing these videos so that you can make some connections about how importantly it's going to be as to whether any medical attention is going to be required down the line, or whether you're able to relieve some of that tension yourself, okay? Now, I'm also, sorry, my little doggy's just walked in from his little walk, going to give you some positives from the lung meridian to replace all of that with when we start to use the techniques that go with this. Okay, so being flexible, okay, being able to let go. Those are just the two I'm going to give you at the moment. So being flexible and being able to let go. Now these are talked about all the time, but when you are suffering and in a state of grief and confusion, you can't just let go, and it's very difficult just to be flexible, because initially we have to admit, we have to accept that we are feeling confused and that we are going through a grieving process. And sometimes that mindset of just let go, just be flexible with your approach, gives such discord with what's actually going on, okay, that it's this internal battle that's going on inside you. So these techniques that I'm going to give you, okay, one of these is EFT, and the EFT techniques that go with this, I've already done a video about that, so I'm not going to go over that one now. I just want you to look back on the videos, and you can use the terminology, whichever you wish. You can use confusion, you can use grief, or you can use coughs, and you can use respiratory issues, anything that's related to that wording wise you are more comfortable with, okay? And then you're going to be able to fill that gap once you've actually used the EFT technique to actually start clearing it. You can fill that gap, okay, straight away with more tapping, with flexibility, okay, and letting go. And this is, because these are really deep issues, this isn't going to clear those deep issues straight away. But what it's going to do is start to take the layers off, okay, so that you're not feeling all this total overwhelm. And the more you keep doing it, the more it'll keep stripping away. And it will also then start to bring other things to the surface, which you then might be more comfortable working with a practitioner or a therapist or someone that you know and trust to partner up with and work on this together, okay? So that's why I'm giving you these techniques, so that if you are isolated, if you are alone, and you've just got those that you care about with you, you can be using these together to bring you closer together as a family, really get to grips with deep emotions and how physically that comes up, because you will find that as a family you will have very similar symptoms to these emotions that I'm going to be talking about, okay? Every single one of you that have the family unit will know exactly what button to press to wind somebody else up with, won't you? Kids are great with that. And once you start to learn all of these little techniques, you'll realise that those buttons that people are trying to press or want to impress, then they don't quite work the same. And it's amazing how quickly that then changes to laughter and teasing, rather than annoyance and screaming and shouting at each other, okay? It really does start to bring out the beauty of your relationships rather than the angst, okay? So I'm not going to go into what the techniques are right now, because I'm keeping these videos under 10 minutes. So the next video will be the technique on how to go through with that, because I know I'm nearly up on time. So I look forward to seeing you very soon.